Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today, all about eating with the seasons. We're going to be exploring what it is, why it even matters, and how you can actually make it work, in your own life. We've got some really interesting articles here, um, covering like all sorts of things, from health benefits to how like different cultures around the world, approach this whole seasonal eating thing, plus some practical tips to kind of get you started. So
Yeah.
whether you're here because you're, super into sustainable living, or trying to just eat healthier. Or maybe you just think food cultures are fascinating. Get ready for some pretty delicious discoveries.
Yeah. And what's so interesting to me is that this isn't, some new fad or anything. It's really how humans ate for centuries. Like,
Yeah.
out of necessity, of course, long before, supermarkets were stocking mangoes in December.
Yeah, it's like going back to our roots,
Yeah.
literally. And speaking of roots, get this. Japan has these festivals called Matsuri, where they celebrate each season with like these really special foods. One example is sakura mochi. They're these beautiful rice cakes that are filled with sweet red bean paste and then wrapped in actual cherry blossom leaves.
Wow. And in Sweden,
Mm.
during the summer, they have something called surströmming. Have you heard of this? It's fermented herring. And apparently it has a very distinctive aroma. Some people love it, and some people, well, let's just say it's an acquired taste.
I think I'll stick to the cherry blossom treats for now.
Yeah.
But it's so incredible how like food is just so intertwined with culture and the natural world.
Hmm.
It makes you realize how much we've lost touch with that connection,
Yeah.
in modern times.
Absolutely. And reconnecting with that can have some pretty amazing benefits, not just for our health, but for the environment and our communities as well. But before we get into all that, let's just define what exactly we mean by seasonal eating. Basically, it's about consuming foods at their peak freshness, aligned with nature's cycles.
Okay, so eating what's naturally available in your region at a particular time of year, it seems pretty straightforward. But why is that so important?
Well, one of the biggest reasons is that seasonal foods are more nutritious. Think about a tomato
Yeah.
you know, that's been allowed to ripen naturally on the vine under the summer sun. It's had time to develop its full flavor and nutrient profile. Now compare that to a tomato that's been picked green and then shipped, thousands of miles. It just hasn't had the chance to reach its full potential.
You mean those pale, out-of-season tomatoes that you sometimes find in the supermarket? I always thought they tasted kind of bland.
Exactly. And it's not just about taste. Studies have shown that certain antioxidants in berries, for instance, can decline by up to 50% after just 3 days of storage. So those fresh-picked summer berries aren't just tastier, they're actually packed with way more nutritional punch.
Wow, 50%. That's a huge difference. I never realized how much the freshness factor impacts the nutritional value. It makes you think twice about reaching for those out-of-season fruits.
It really does. And it's not just fruits and vegetables. Think about, you know, those juicy summer peaches, the crisp autumn apples, or those hearty winter squashes. Nature really does provide us with what our bodies need at different times of year.
But I think a lot of people worry that eating seasonally will be too restrictive, especially if you live in a city. Like, what if you don't have a garden or can't always make it to a farmer's market?
Yeah, those are valid concerns, and we'll definitely dive into some practical solutions for those challenges a little later. But one thing I find really empowering is that even making small changes can have a big impact. You don't have to completely overhaul your diet overnight. Even incorporating one or two seasonal ingredients into your meals each week is a step in the right direction.
Okay, that's good to hear because I was already starting to feel overwhelmed. But let's talk about those cravings for out-of-season foods. Like, what do we do when that urge for strawberries hits in the middle of winter?
Well, instead of viewing it as a restriction, see it as an opportunity for creative exploration. Could frozen berries satisfy that craving? They're often picked at their peak and retain much of their nutrition. Or why not try exploring other winter fruits with similar flavor profiles, like pomegranates, with their bright, tangy sweetness?
That's such a good point. It's about being open to new discoveries and finding delicious alternatives rather than feeling deprived.
Exactly. It's a shift in mindset from, I can't have this, to, what else can I enjoy that's in season right now? And who knows? You might even discover a new favorite fruit or vegetable along the way.
Okay, so we've talked about how eating seasonally can be really good for our health. But what about like the bigger picture? How does it all impact the environment and our communities?
Yeah, that's a really important point. And this is where I think seasonal eating really shines. When you choose, locally sourced foods that are in season, you're dramatically reducing the distance that your food has to travel. And that in turn reduces greenhouse gas emissions from transportation.
Oh, so less time on trucks and planes means a smaller carbon footprint.
Exactly. And it goes beyond transportation, too. Local farms often use more sustainable farming practices,
Yeah.
like crop rotation and organic methods, which help preserve soil health and biodiversity. It's a much more holistic approach that benefits the whole ecosystem.
It sounds like a chain reaction of positive impacts. And I imagine there are economic benefits too, right? Like supporting local farmers instead of large corporations.
Absolutely. When you buy from local farmers, you're directly contributing to the local economy. That money stays within the community and helps small farms thrive, which is, essential for a resilient and sustainable food system.
This is making me think about those farm-to-table restaurants that have become so popular. It's not just a trendy concept. It's a way of supporting our local communities and economies.
Exactly. And, beyond the tangible benefits like nutrition, the environment, and the economy, there's another fascinating aspect I came across in the research: the connection between seasonal eating and mental well-being.
Really, just being more mindful about what we eat can impact our mental health.
It seems almost counterintuitive, in our fast-paced, always-on world. But there's a growing body of research that shows that connecting with nature, even through simple activities like gardening or visiting farmers markets, can have a profound impact on our mental health. For example, studies have found that spending time in nature can decrease levels of the stress hormone cortisol.
So it's not just about the food itself, it's the whole experience of connecting with the source of our food.
Yeah, it's about slowing down, being mindful, and appreciating the journey our food takes from farm to table. It's a holistic approach that nourishes both body and mind.
This reminds me of something we talked about earlier, those cultural traditions around the world that celebrate the seasons through food. It's like those traditions were inherently acknowledging this mind-body connection, long before we had scientific studies to prove it.
That's a really insightful observation. Take Japan, for example. They celebrate the arrival of spring with sakura mochi, those delicate rice cakes we mentioned earlier, which are filled with sweet red bean paste and wrapped in cherry blossom leaves. It's such a beautiful and poetic way to mark the changing seasons and connect with nature's rhythms.
And I bet it tastes amazing too. It's making me want to book a flight to Japan right now.
Well,
What other traditions did you come across?
Well, in Mexico, during the colder months, they enjoy pozole. It's a hearty and comforting soup made with hominy meat and a variety of seasonal toppings like radishes, lettuce, and lime. It's a dish that perfectly reflects the flavors and colors of winter and brings people together.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
It seems like comfort food is a universal language, no matter what culture you're looking at.
It's true. Food has this incredible ability to connect us to our heritage, our families, and our communities. And when we eat seasonally, we're tapping into those deeper connections and honoring those traditions.
Now I'm curious about the connection between seasonal eating and something we hear a lot about these days, mindful consumption. How do those two ideas intersect?
Well, mindful consumption is about being present and intentional with our food choices. And seasonal eating naturally encourages that. When we're paying attention to what's in season, we're more aware of where our food comes from, how it was grown, and the journey it took to get to our plate.
It's like we're shifting our focus from just the end product to appreciating the entire process.
Exactly. It's about slowing down, savoring each bite, being grateful for the abundance that nature provides, and recognizing that our food choices have a ripple effect that impacts the environment, our communities, and our own well-being.
It's amazing how something as simple as eating seasonally can have such a profound impact on so many different levels. It really makes you stop and think.
It does, and that's what makes exploring this topic so fascinating. We're uncovering a whole web of connections, revealing how food is intertwined with nature, culture, health, and even our sense of well-being.
It's been quite a journey so far. But I know there are a lot of practical questions that come up when people think about trying to eat seasonally. Like, where do you even find seasonal produce? How do you fit it into a busy schedule? What about those cravings for out-of-season foods?
Those are all excellent questions, and we're going to tackle them head-on in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore practical tips for finding seasonal produce, even if you live in an urban environment. And we'll share some strategies for making seasonal eating a reality in your own life.
Sounds great. Can't wait. All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into seasonal eating. It's been so fun to explore the history and the science behind it all. Oh, and those global traditions are so interesting. Plus that surprising mind-body connection. But let's get to the practical stuff. How can we actually make this, work in our everyday life?
Right, that's the big question. I think the first thing is just acknowledging that it might not happen overnight. It's really more of a gradual process, figuring out what works best for you and your lifestyle.
Okay, so no pressure to completely change everything right away. But let's talk about cravings for stuff that's, not in season. What happens when you're really wanting strawberries? But it's the middle of winter.
Well, instead of thinking of it as like, a restriction,
Yeah.
try to see it as a chance to get creative in the kitchen. Maybe frozen berries could work. They're often picked at their peak and they keep a lot of their nutrients. Or what about exploring some different fruits that are in season in the winter, but that have a similar flavor? Like pomegranates are really good. They have that bright, tangy sweetness that you might be craving.
True, true. It's like turning a challenge into a fun little experiment. But speaking of challenges, what about finding seasonal produce? Especially if you live in a city.
There are actually a lot more options than you might think. We talked about CSAs earlier, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. These programs let you subscribe to a local farm's harvest, so you get these regular deliveries of fresh seasonal produce right to your door. But even like regular supermarkets, they're getting a lot better about labeling produce with in-season or locally sourced tags. And don't forget about all the online resources now. There are websites and even apps to help you find local farms and markets. And there are even delivery services that specialize in seasonal goods.
So you don't have to drive out to farms or hunt down farmers markets all the time. There are ways to make it work, even with a busy, city lifestyle.
Exactly. There are more and more resources popping up all the time to make it easier and more convenient to eat seasonally.
Okay, so let's say we found some good sources for seasonal ingredients. Now what? Any tips on how to actually use them? Especially for those of us who are, always on the go.
Yeah. Meal planning is going to be key. Take a little time each week to see what's in season and plan your meals around that. Another great strategy is batch cooking. Make a big pot of soup or stew on the weekend using seasonal veggies. Then you've got lunches or dinners ready for the whole week.
Batch cooking is such a lifesaver. I'm always trying to simplify things during the week, and I imagine this approach kind of forces you to get more creative in the kitchen.
Absolutely. Instead of always making the same old recipes, you'll be inspired to try new flavor combinations and discover some new dishes based on what's in season. For example, the research we looked at talked about this really vibrant spring salad with fresh greens, radishes, and a tangy lemon vinaigrette. Or think about a summer berry and herb salad, bursting with color and flavor. Or a hearty autumn root vegetable stew. Or a comforting winter kale and quinoa bowl.
Okay, stop. You're making me hungry. It really does sound like it opens up a whole new world of culinary possibilities.
It really does. It's like having nature as your personal chef, guiding you with the freshest, most flavorful ingredients each season.
So before we wrap up, what's the one piece of advice you would give to someone who's just starting to eat seasonally?
I would say be patient with yourself. It's a process, not a race. Start small, maybe just focus on one meal a day, or try adding one new seasonal ingredient each week. And remember to celebrate all those small victories. Every time you choose locally grown apples over, imported mangoes, you're making a difference.
I love that. It's so important to remember that and not get discouraged.
Exactly. Every little bit counts.
Yeah.
And as you start paying more attention to the seasons and what's in season, you'll be amazed by the variety that nature provides.
It's like rediscovering the joy of eating
Hmm.
and connecting with the natural world in a whole new way.
That's beautiful. It's about more than just following a set of rules. It's about going on a journey of exploration and discovery and having a deeper appreciation for the food we eat and where it comes from.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It's been fascinating to explore, all the different facets of seasonal eating, from the science and cultural traditions to the practical ways we can actually make it a part of our lives.
And hopefully we've made you a little bit curious and inspired you to try something new. Even if you're just starting out with this, remember that every step you take is a step toward a healthier you, a healthier community, and a healthier planet.
Thanks for joining us on this delicious adventure into seasonal eating. We hope you learned something new and that you're leaving with a little more appreciation for the amazing bounty that each season has to offer.